Loading. Welcome to Access the Animus.
Hello everyone and welcome to a new video here on Access the Animus. Today we're going to have a look at all the gameplay information and news about the upcoming Dawn of Ragnarok DLC of Assassin's Creed Valhalla that have been released over the last few weeks since its announcement. We're going to delve into all the announced abilities and powers for our main character Odin, the new weapon type that is going to be introduced in the expansion, and the new enemy types that have been announced already. Finally, we're going to discuss the battle arena run by a Valkyrie that will be added to the DLC, the potential enemies that we might find inside of it, and the interesting system that will be used to select the difficulty in its challenges. If you enjoyed the video, please consider liking it, subscribing to our channel, and turning the notifications on so you won't miss any of our future updates. And with that out of the way, let's dive into all the gameplay related news about the Dawn of Ragnarok DLC. So let's start from the basics. Dawn of Ragnarok will be a full-on mythological expansion for Assassin's Creed Valhalla that will launch on March the 10th and whose development was spearheaded by Ubisoft Sofia. Amidst the devs and key speakers for the DLC, we can mention Mikhail Lozanov, who is creative director, Giles Armstrong, who is senior scriptwriter for the DLC, producer Mariana Gosteva, and game director Georgy Popov. This has been marketed as the biggest AC expansion yet, promising more content than some of the full games on the series, especially the first ones. Its price point is at $40, which seems to be pretty high compared to the value provided by the main game, but it aims to bring 35 hours of content across a map that is roughly 1/3 of the size of England, and will be set in the mythological realm of Svartalfheim, that is the realm of the Dark Elves and the Dwarves, even though in some sources there is also a mention of these content taking place across a collection of Norse realms. I don't think that's gonna be the case. I think that might be a misreport on behalf of the source, because the full attention is actually on Svartalfheim and what is happening in there. It has also been described as the most cohesive way to extend the story of Valhalla, according to producer Jose Araiza, which I'm not too sure about considering the ending of the main game and the recent pieces of content released for the game itself. And we do know that Dawn of Ragnarok will be accessible after players reach settlement level 4 and unlock Valka's hut. While there is no required power level, Ubisoft recommended players to be around at least level 340 to avoid having too tough a time in Svartalfheim. Now, we do know that in terms of timeline, Dawn of Ragnarok takes place after the Asgard and Jotunheim arcs of the main game, but even if it takes place after that, players will be able to play the expansion even if they haven't completed those arcs, and Ubisoft Sofia said that they made sure that these players will be just as engaged as those who have played the game, and I think that depends on something that was mentioned by Andy Reloads in one of his videos, whose link you can find in the description, where he reported some game files mentioning that it would be possible to start the game without having completed Valhalla, and that the game would have players start at power level 340, which actually matches the power level suggested to play the DLC. And he also mentioned that new players would be provided with appropriate armor sets, weapons and abilities, and even runes that would be actually automatically added to the player's inventory so that they can start their progression from there. So this is kind of like a power level reset or upgrade to get the player up to speed and ready to play. But this also should mean that story-wise we can also start in the middle of things, and not as if Eivor or Odin didn't know anything about the past, which was actually one of the issues of the past DLCs. While we'll discuss the story aspects in a dedicated video, we can already mention that Odin will venture to Svartalfheim in order to save his son Baldur, who has been kidnapped by a giant god called Surtur. Surtur has actually invaded the realm by using troops from both the realms of ice and fire, that is Muspelheim and Jotunheim, and thus while venturing in a realm made of different environments like underground caves with dwarf forges, golden peaks, some green and ice lands as well, and especially a lot of lava, Odin will have to face a lot of Muspels and Jotnar, but as you probably already know, he won't be doing it without some new upgrades. In fact, one of the biggest gameplay-related selling points of the DLC is the new sets of abilities, or more precisely called Hugr powers, that Odin will wield. And these abilities will actually be obtained through an artifact called the Hugr Rip, which is actually a bracelet, and enables Odin to draw new powers from defeated enemies. So these abilities will include infusing Odin's weapons with ice in order to unleash strikes which are going to affect the Muspels especially, I would imagine, taking on the shape of a Muspel and walk stealthily among them while also being immune to fire and magma, which we should be already know to be called Muspel Glamour, shapeshift into a raven for some visually cool assassinations which we saw in the trailer, and also for traversal. In fact, shapeshifting into the raven will allow Odin and the player to quickly cover long distances and also to reach locations that they wouldn't be able to reach otherwise. Odin will also be able to teleport by using his bow and arrows, which can also be seen in the trailer, and even resurrect defeated enemies that would then fight for him. While this looks already like a huge arsenal of abilities for Odin, it seems like some of the abilities that had been leaked in the past weeks did not make the cut or were not covered through the interviews in the last few weeks. For example, Odin doesn't seem to be able to transform into a Jotnar or some kind of ice protection, which was called Jotnar Glamour. He should be able to imbue weapons with fire too, which hasn't been mentioned in the interviews, and also the magma skin was actually separated from the Muspel Glamours in the leaks. So it looks like either these abilities have been canned or they might be announced in the future. Many news reports mention that only 2 Hugr powers can be held at a time, which will push players to pick the ones that best fit their situation or their character build, and the way to change these 2 Hugr powers is to defeat opponents and take the new powers from them. This kind of creates a strategic choice for the players, pushing them to choose the power that is more suited to their current situation, but also this should make them wonder about what power they are actually abandoning, which might be actually useful later. And there's also the strategic element on finding the enemies that grant you those powers, as you won't be able to choose the power that you need from a list of the ones that you have at any given time. These powers will also be upgradable like the abilities in the main game, so you will probably have to look for the upgrade within the game world in order to have a modification or an improvement to the powers themselves. The powers though will also need a resource in order to be activated. It's gonna be called the Hugr or Hugr Life Essence, and Odin will be able to draw it from defeated enemies and animals, from giant flowers called Hugr Blooms, or by sacrificing some of his health at some special shrines called Shrine of Yggdrasil. We also know that there's going to be a new weapon type called the Atgeir, which is basically, like we mentioned in our previous videos, a type of polearm used in the Viking Age, which we can already see in this screenshot, and while we don't know how many of these will be in the DLC, this has already been discussed as a new weapon class with a specific combo system, so at least we can expect some changes to the fighting flow while playing the DLC. There are also some news concerning the enemies that we're going to face in the DLC. We mentioned already the Jotnars, who are enemies from Jotunheim whom we met already in the main game, and also the Muspels, who are the new enemies of fire coming from Muspelheim. And for these fire enemies we can already mention 2 enemy classes: the Flame Keepers, who use an ability to bring back fallen foes, and it's from them that we're likely going to obtain the equivalent ability, and then we have the enemies known as Surtur's Fury, who will launch themselves at Odin and explode to inflict presumably a great deal of damage, even if we don't know what kind of ability we can extract from them. And last but not least, we have something that has been mentioned in all of the news report about Dawn of Ragnarok, that is a battle arena that will be located within the DLC's map and will be run or hosted by a Valkyrie. Here players will be able to take on some combat trials called Trials of the Valkyrie, with the option to increase the difficulty of these challenges in order to earn greater rewards. But the interesting thing here is that the difficulty is selected by choosing different boosting bows that will make victory more rewarding, using the Ubisoft website's words. So it looks like players will have to choose the boast that they want Odin to pronounce in front of their opponent in order to choose the difficulty of that specific battle. There has also been a mention within the Italian press about having different Valkyries to defeat within the arena, so we can maybe expect to have Hugr or Hildiran, the character from the Mastery Challenge game mode, appear here in the DLC, either running the arena itself or appearing as an opponent. There have also been references to new foes as well as some familiar faces appearing within the arena, so as mentioned by Joe Raptor, we can maybe expect to find the mythical creatures from the main game and its DLCs to be reused in this arena mode, along with some new enemies and maybe bosses. And that was it for today's video. What do you think about Dawn of Ragnarok in itself and specifically about its features? Which are the ones that you are looking forward to the most or the least? Let us know as usual in the comments below. Also, join us in our next video where we're going to delve into all the story information about the DLC, its ties with its dedicated comic book series and some speculations of our own. Thanks for watching and we'll see you very soon.